And here is a series of photographs taken of the American medium Ethel Post and the gradual materializations.
Well, then, do you think one could venture to use such an experiment here, in this case?
Well, I sincerely hope somebody will try it.
Yes, that would be good.
Tom Corbett asked Alan Fabian to come down from London and set up his special time-lapse camera equipment all night in the haunted corridor at Longleat to see if we could catch the image of Louisa Carteret on the film. We were not to know the results of that experiment until much later. As we left the haunted corridor to go down to the cellars, where Lord Bath had promised us we would find proof that the legend was true, we passed once again through the beautiful Bishop Ken Library.
By the way, this is only part of the collection of the books at Longleat. We have over 30,000 volumes divided between this library up here and 2 more on the ground floor.
William Shakespeare, the first folios.
Well, now I would like to show you one of the biggest proofs that this legend is true. In 1911, my father decided to modernize what was even then considered to be a somewhat antiquated form of central heating. But in order to do so, he had to lower the floor of the existing furnace room, which is just up here ahead. There, right there. It was when they lifted those flagstones that they found the skeleton of a man. Most of the clothing that he was wearing had completely deteriorated into dust, with the exception of a pair of boots, which were identified as belonging to the time when Louisa Carteret came to Longleat.
So this is where they buried Louisa's lover.
The following day we saw the film that had been taken in the haunted corridor. There was something on it.
You see it now?
Yes, coming down the
Comes
wall.
through the door.
Quite right.
Through the door on the left.
It seems to go disappear at that door on the left.
You see?
Yes. Well, do you think that has a significance?
Well, frankly, I would have thought it was the beginning of a manifestation. Let me run it back for you again.
Yes, please.
Well, let's go back on that again.
There's no suggestion that it was a car light, which of course does spring to one's mind that a light from a car would travel.
Yes, but you can't because it's in the well at the back. And it's surrounded by 4 very high walls, so that's an impossibility. Yes. And of course we have the testimony of Jeff Smith, the electrician who spent the whole night there.
Yes.
Well, we sat there this night with this stop frame camera, Alan Fabian and myself. All the lighting conditions were controlled. The windows were blacked out. There was no possibility of moonlight or car headlights or anything coming through. When we saw the stuff later, there was this shaft of light, which is, to me, is completely unexplainable.
Of course, we can never know conclusively, but I prefer to believe that it was a sign from Lady Carteret, thanking us for our interest and wanting us to know that all was well with her. By the time we left Longleat, it was dark. The swans on the ornamental lake stood out like porcelain figurine on the black water. There is a legend that when the swans fly away from Longleat, never to return, the Thin family will die out. It is fervently to be hoped that day will never arrive. We are in the Crown Chamber of Salisbury Hall, the home of Mr. and Mrs. Walter Goldsmith. We are waiting for a ghost to appear. The ghost of Nell Gwynn. Salisbury Hall is one of the smallest of the stately homes of England. Its approach is by an undistinguished-looking farm track leading off the main London road 4 miles south of St. Albans. A sudden switch to the left, and you are facing a small bridge over a moat. Cross that bridge, and you are on a few square yards of earth whose history is the history of England. For ever since men knew how to build, there has been a house at Salisbury Hall. Beneath this floor is hard-beaten earth, which knew the heavy imprint of a Roman soldier's sandal. But for the legend of Salisbury Hall and the hauntings, we have only to go back 3 centuries to those magnificent days of Charles II, that charming, sensual, merry monarch of the Restoration. In 1668, Samuel Pepys wrote in his diary, "The king did send for Nell Gwynn." She was 18, a red-headed, impish, witty, loyal gutter snipe who had made her way up from the streets to be an orange seller, to be eventually the best-loved actress and comedian of her day. He was a splendid man in his early 40s. Neither were exactly new to love. The king's mistresses were notorious and legion. And Nellie? Well, Nellie came from the poorest streets of London, where life was lived to its fullest and pleasure taken when and where one might. The liaison that began that day in 1668
was to last until their death. It was here that he brought her, away from the prying eyes and gossiping tongues of the court. In that room upstairs, their first son was born, and the king created him Duke of St. Albans.
Because from this bedroom window can be seen in the distance the ancient city of St. Albans.
Nellie was only 35 when the king died. She outlived him by just 2 years. Every hour of them in danger of being thrown into a debtor's prison. Her death was in the utmost poverty. Gather ye rosebuds while ye may. Old time is still a-flying, and this same flower that smiles today, tomorrow will be dying. Yes, this is Nellie's house, where she loved and laughed, and to which she now returns. She now returns. She now returns. Have you ever seen Nell Gwynn, Mr. Goldsmith?
No, I regret very much I haven't actually seen Nell Gwynn. But there's a great deal of compelling evidence to show that she does, in fact, reappear. That book, by your left hand, Mr. Davis, contains the testimony of no less a person than Sir Winston Churchill's stepfather, who once lived in this house.
It's called Edwardian Heydays. Ah, here's the passage. One evening at Salisbury Hall, just as it was getting dusk, I came down the staircase, which leads into the old panelled room that we used as a dining room, and there, standing in a corner, I saw the figure of a youngish and beautiful woman with a blue fichu round her shoulders. She looked intently at me, then turned and disappeared through a door in the passage. I followed her and found nothing. She looked so exactly like a former nursemaid of ours called Ellen Bryan that I felt certain she must have died, and I had witnessed an apparition of her at the moment of her death. I thought no more about the matter until a few weeks later when my sister Daisy came to visit us. As Salisbury Hall had been inhabited by Nell Gwynn, I had a hobby of collecting prints of this lady, and taking up one, Daisy said, "I never realized before the truth of what people used to say about Ellen Bryan, how she was exactly like the pictures of Nell Gwynn."
She is here. She's very definitely here.
Is she here? I mean, is she in our midst?
Oh, yes, without a doubt. But she's fading. I don't think she'll come to this house much longer, because she appears to me as though she's finally reaching her state of rest.
Pity it isn't happening to the one upstairs, Tom. You know, we've got 2 ghosts at Salisbury Hall.
But you have got the ghost of a man here. He passed out of this life, I would say, through rather tragic circumstances.
We know all about this one. I'd better give you a bit of the background history first. During the Civil War, this was a royalist stronghold, and the whole house was honeycombed with secret hiding places and